although you may be a co-sponsor. And Senator Watson, well, he's in JPR. We'll get to you, too. Senator King, that's Bill 920, Early Childhood Development, Child Care Scholarship Program alterations. Welcome, Senator King. I assume we're bringing up Ms. Pooch and Ruth Carolina Reyes. Is that right?
Yep.
And there's one more up there?
Laura Wheeldryer.
Of course, Ms. Wheeldryer. Okay, and just so we know, there is no opposition listed, oral or written. So for additional people testifying, we won't object to any Me Too's or shortened testimony. With that, Senator King, welcome.
So you don't have to say all your testimony, or just say me too if you want, because I think that would help. Okay.
Again, feel free to place your testimony. You don't want to convince us from a position we may already be in, I guess. I don't know how to say that more carefully.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I know this committee is very familiar with the Child Care Scholarship Program that we used to call the Child Care Subsidy. Since the inception of this important program, we have heard from families and providers about the onerous process of applying, the long wait times for approval, and the even longer wait times for payment to providers. This burdensome process has resulted in families losing employment opportunities or losing open child care slots. And the wait times for payment from the scholarship has caused real financial hardship for the providers. Senate Bill 920 seeks to address these issues by doing the following. First, the legislation will allow families who believe they meet the criteria for scholarship to self-certify and immediately enroll their children. They then have 15 days to submit their formal paperwork. Next, the bill expands automatic eligibility to Maryland families who qualify for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, Housing Vouchers, and Guaranteed Access. Next, the legislation removes the requirement for an individual to pursue or receive child care support payments or apply for services from a child support agency to be eligible for a child care scholarship. And finally, the bill requires MSDE to pay child care providers participating in the Child Care Scholarship Program within 10 business days of receiving the full invoice. And it requires MSDE to work with national experts to review, update, streamline, and simplify the Child Care Scholarship application to ensure it is accessible, clear, and easily completed by all families. This legislation will simplify and accelerate the process for child care, and I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. Senator, do you mind if we hear from your witnesses, then come back for questions?
That would be perfect.
Okay. Ms. Wheeldryer, I think you're lead witness.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Wheeldryer from Maryland Family Network, and I always take the sage advice of committee chairs, so I'm here to urge a favorable report, and me too.
Didn't mean to be dismissive. I'm sure
Not
you
at all.
have points of importance, so if I overstated it, please. If that's the case, you can proceed in whatever order you choose.
Great. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and committee members, and thank you, Senator King. I'm Christina Push, Executive Director of the Maryland State Child Care Association, representing over 5,000 child care professionals in Maryland. Child care is an economic and equity imperative. It's essential to the economy, and the scholarships are critical to our most vulnerable children and families due to the record investments at the federal level and some coming now from the state funds earmarked for necessary changes in the Child Care Scholarship Program. Now's the time to make changes in order to be equitable, efficient resources to support families, children, and the child care businesses electing to accept child care scholarships. MSCA requests a favorable report. Thank you.
Ms. Push. Ms. Reyes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Carolina Reyes, and I am the owner and director of Arco Iris Bilingual Children's Center. And I took the time to come here to obviously ask for a favorable report. I have seen for the last 2 years how my families who come to my center is struggling to be able to obtain the scholarship resources that are available in the state of Maryland for all of them. I just want to say that, being a high-quality early center with participating in Maryland Excels and very unique environment. My center is a bilingual center, so I offer, quality opportunities for the children, for families who first language is not English, and therefore I would love to be able to continue to provide that environment to my families. And having these constant issues for my families to be able to apply for the scholarship, what happens is that it turns them away, and then unfortunately they may go to illegal childcare, where probably they won't be able to get the unique environments that I am providing for them. I would like to provide examples of what I have faced with some of my families. Some of them have been waiting over a month, over 3 months sometimes, to be able to get, the scholarship. So it's necessary that we can able to these families to enter the workforce now with this assistance. I also would like to add that as a provider, sometimes as well, I'm not received the money on time. At this particular moment, I'm still waiting for payments from January. So as you know, we are battling the pandemic still, and we need those resources now. So thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions for any of the panelists? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator King, and thank you all for your leadership and for being with us today. I don't know if this is a question for Senator King or Ms. Push, but Ms. Reyes, your testimony amplified what I was going to ask about, actually. On page 2 of the bill, it talks about lines, hold on, where'd it go? Crap, I just saw it. Hold on. It talks about that they have to submit the form electronically. Here we go, lines 4 through 6. An individual, blah, 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 for a subsidy by completing and electronically submitting a form to the department. So what it doesn't say is where they get the form. So I assume that's on the website, but it doesn't say that. And second, it's not clear to me that that would be available in multiple languages, because we do want to make sure that non-native English-speaking daycare providers, childcare providers, are able to access the form, are able to complete the form, and then, frankly, can do it in a way that the department can translate it and process it and all that. So I wonder if you've given any thoughts, and if you haven't, maybe we
Had
can talk
not,
about that offline.
but I'm happy to work with you to fix it to,
It's in other languages.
oh, it is?
There is in other languages, may I
But there's
say
no
something?
Ms. Reyes,
Sure.
could you speak into the microphone, please?
Yes. The forms are in other languages. However, the explanation of the process is very confusing. I invite you to look at the forms, and also when families need to call the 1-800 numbers.
Yes.
It is very difficult to talk to a human being to be able to get guidance. And I think, once again, Maryland is a state of a very diverse group of people.
Yes.
Even though we provide, this form in different languages, we need to have people
Yes.
to be able to guide them with the process, because when we look into the details of the forms, many times we're going to find situations such as child support with the Latino community. Many times can be a struggle. I have seen many of my immigrant, community who many times are not very aware of how this can benefit your child who may be a USA citizen,
Yes.
but their parents are not. So they don't have the real information, and it's necessary for us to be able to also campaign
Right.
to allow our families to understand that this money is available for them. Many people don't know about this.
So, Senator King, we have a lot to do today, and I don't want to take a lot of the committee's time, but I wonder if you all might be able to email Senator King or Senator King and me, or we'll share with the committee, and I can brainstorm with council as well as Senator King. But years ago, when I passed my 2 language access bills requiring the state government agencies and departments all be multilingual on their websites, we also did some anonymous calling just to try to see how people would respond to someone speaking in Spanish. And it was not pretty.
Right.
A lot of people started yelling, they hung up, they transferred, they put on hold, it was bad. And I don't know whether
That's what
things
we're
are any
facing.
better, but I suspect that it's still bad. So we're not going to solve all of that with this bill, but if we're going to have a scholarship program and have funds available, we want it to be available to everyone. So Senator King, maybe you and I can talk about this another
Yes,
time.
and not only in the right languages, but to make it clear enough
Absolutely.
that.
Plain
that,
English.
You know, the
Or-
person that puts it together has
Yeah.
one way to look at it, but somebody coming in off the street to look at it is looking for some very basic answers that aren't there.
Totally.
The
I
bill
agree.
does speak to MST working with national experts on the application,
Yes.
which we could then incorporate this into.
Happy to
Senator
be a part of
Cardozo.
that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator King, thank you for this bill, and thank you for your presenters. I wanted to ask you, I'm excited about this because not only are we improving this process, but this is also tied to our workforce shortage. We hear that consistently, so I really want to thank you for that. And also, I know that when there's a really positive experience, that first child care experience, I still hear my sisters talking about, the impact that those child care providers had early on. My question is, I wanted to better understand the improved process. I like to be walked through things like when somebody applies, have they already picked out their provider and then they're going through the process? So what that looks like and why it's better. And even though I understand why we're terminating the child support requirement, I didn't know if there was a way that we still kind of flag something so we know, maybe the Department of Human Services, Social Services knows that, hey, this is still out there. So again, I understand that. So those are my two questions. The process, how it actually is improved, and two, if there's still a way that even though we're not tying it to child support, we can still maybe flag it so we're still pursuing that.
May I answer? So I have helped my families. I had also take the job as a social worker, to be honest with you, in that aspect, because many people don't know about the child care scholarship. So once they know and I provide that information, parents has to apply and collect a variety of, paperworks. So what it takes is over a month for them to be able to turn in paperwork and then to obtain an approval letter, which many times it may take a month. And even sometimes it may take a month for them to tell them that they are missing information. And to the time the parents are able to collect the information they were missing, the deadline is over and they had to reapply again. I have heard from the scholarship, phone number and people who work there, that it's better for parents to apply again instead of getting an appeal, because appeal may take up to 3 months. So parents has to redo everything again, and once again, we go into a second month to a third month, where these families who need to enter the workforce, they are not able to because many times they don't have a support system for them to be able to help them.
So they're still waiting, they don't come to you and then decide to apply.
No, because some of them don't know.
Okay.
And that's what, once again, families in Maryland are not aware that this benefit is there for them. And we need, and I ask you also to be able to campaign for families to be able to understand. And when they start the process, once again, I have families who may not speak the language, and it may take time for them to understand what they require. And there are many questions, and when you want to ask somebody and you call, you are
So
not
they're
able to
finding out
have.
from you about the program.
Right, so what we
Okay.
have done, and we have suggested to MSDE, is that they can teach us, the providers too, how we can assist the families to the process of applying for the application. So that way, when they enter, they won't be able to find any flaws or they're missing
Thank
the
you. And
documentation.
Senator
Committee,
King, can I
we-
ask you
we-
about the child support?
We have a lot of bills today.
Okay. Just on the child support, just quickly.
Very briefly.
There's federal requirements for child support.
So when they'll just.
They'll check the box for
And then
that.
they'll notify them.
Correct.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Vice Chair,
Briefly, the House version of the bill sponsored by Senator Solomon, and Delegate Solomon and Delegate Palakovich-Carr apparently has a number of amendments. At some point, would love to know what you all think of the amendments, because we are now in a little bit of back and forth. Thank you.
okay, thank you all. Thank you for
you
your
so
testimony. Thank you, Senator. That completes the hearing on 920. Let's go to 942, Senator Griffith, Agriculture, Urban Agriculture, Water and Power Infrastructure Grant Program and Fund. Let's bring up Gina Michaelides and also Colby Ferguson. And then soon after, we will have Kelly Bryan, Steve McHenry, Human Hadarian, and Robin Clark. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the EHE Committee. I am, for the record, Melanie Griffith, Senator representing Legislative District 25 in Prince George's County. I'm pleased to present, and will be very brief, Senate Bill 942, which establishes an urban agriculture, water, and power infrastructure grant program within the Maryland Department of Agriculture. I'm going to allow the panelists to talk about the specifics of the bill, but I do want to speak about one letter of information that you probably have in your files from DBM, and to mention to you, if you didn't recall, in Senate Bill 541, which passed our chamber on third reader a few days ago, there was intent language in that bill that set aside the funding that is in this piece of legislation. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to a phenomenal student from the University of Maryland, College Park.
Chairman Pinsky, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee.
Please bring the mic a little closer, or as they say, lean in.
Sorry. Okay. Chairman Pinsky, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. My name is Gina Michaelides, and I am a senior at the University of Maryland. I am here today to ask you to vote in favor of SB 942, and I ask for your support for 3 reasons. Firstly, food deserts are an issue that disproportionately impacts people living in urban communities. A way to combat food deserts is to increase the creation of and access to fresh produce through urban farming and community gardens. The second reason is because SB 942 would incentivize and support urban farming by covering 87.5% of the costs associated with urban agriculture infrastructure and equipment. Farming equipment includes water meters, water pipes, irrigation hoses, electric meters, and electrical lines. The final reason I ask for your support is because grants like this one work. To receive funding from the grant, a person must be an urban agricultural producer. This is someone who annually sells or would have sold at least $1,000 worth of farm products in an urban area of Maryland. Once again, I ask for a favorable report on SB 942.
Thank you, Ms. Michaelides. Ms. Ferguson, whatever order you choose.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Colby Ferguson on behalf of Maryland Farm Bureau. We come in support of Senate Bill 942. Senator Griffith talked about the funding piece, and so I think we've addressed that. So I'll just focus on what the bill actually does and what the program is. And so most of you know about the Maryland Ag Cost Share Program that the farmers use through Maryland Department of Agriculture, where we have an 87.5% cost share program, primarily for water quality improvement, best management practices. What this bill does is also incorporate in that agency, in that department, this urban ag, water, and power infrastructure. So this would be already, there's not really a brand new program needing to be done. It's just going to fit within what Department of Ag already does and give them a dedicated source of funds to not go against what we're already doing for water quality improvements. So this bill takes care of cost sharing infrastructure. You usually get a vacant lot, comes in, doesn't have a water line, doesn't have any taps to hook in for irrigation pivots or irrigation drip lines, typically doesn't have a water or doesn't have an electric meter. This bill is to help offset some of that public infrastructure needed that in most cases a farmer doesn't have the cost to do. I will encourage you to look at Neath Little. She is with the University of Maryland Extension. She's the Baltimore City county agent or city agent. Actually, in her written testimony, she talks about 3 different projects that are in Baltimore City that are really hung up, not moving right now, and it all is stemmed around these funding issues. So read those. There's some. It's holding up some grants that are being used, but this would be very, very helpful to help a lot of these urban farmers move forward. So we encourage a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
Hello, my name is Kelly Bryant, so thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and to all the committee members. Thank you to Senator Griffith for sponsoring this bill. My name is Kelly Bryant again. I am an agriculture teacher in Charles County, and I'm here representing the Maryland Agriculture Teachers Association as I'm a board member. I'm asking the committee's favorable report of Senate Bill 942 because as an ag teacher, I recognize the importance of equity among all students in my classroom, in my school, in my county, and most importantly in the state of Maryland. This bill will allow ag producers and nonprofits to purchase supplies to establish efficient and diversified urban gardens and farms. It will give them the infrastructure needed for people like Farmer Chippy. If you don't know Farmer Chippy out of Baltimore City, I highly encourage your committee to take a field trip to Baltimore City this summer and meet Farmer Chippy. He is from Trinidad, and he does amazing work and is all about educating young people on agriculture. His importance is to teach adults and children how to grow their own food, and he sees it as imperative as the price of goods continue to rise. We're seeing this, and we're going to see it more as the years go by, especially as we have all the issues going around in our world right now. And the year 2015 is going to be imperative for us as the population will meet how much food we're able to grow. We need to ensure all Marylanders have access to locally grown foods. We cannot continue to shortchange our urban areas when it comes to agriculture. Data proves that students learn best in a hands-on situation. This bill will help put funds aside for these nonprofits to provide hands-on experiences for our children, and they crave that and they deserve that. In 2019, one of our agriculture education pathways was closed at Benjamin Franklin High School. So just to give you an idea, we now have 2 programs in Baltimore City, 8 in Carroll County, 10 in Frederick. So I know I've run out of time. I hope that you will support this bill, and if you have any questions, I'm more than welcome to entertain those. Thank you.
If we can, if the three of you, other than the senator and sponsor, can step back one row, we may have questions for you. And let's bring up Mr. McHenry, Mr. Hadarian, and Ms. Clark. And then we'll take questions, and we'll let the good senator go back up to her committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Steve
Steve.
McHenry here representing Marbitco today. It's very good for me to be back before you in person. You have my written statement, and you also have a written statement from the Maryland Food System Resiliency Council, which also is in favor of this piece of legislation. Marbitco, working with a number of partnering entities represented here on the panels today and around the state, have been really working over the last several months to try to develop more support mechanisms for urban agriculture in the state. This includes not only commercial food production, but also in the urban context, food production that's not of a commercial nature, like community gardens, educational activities in urban areas, things of that sort. So this particular piece of legislation here before you is one of 3 major pieces of legislation that are before the General Assembly this session. You heard Senator McCrae's bill last week on the Urban Ag Extension Agents, very important bill. This bill is another complement to that bill and another bill that's in the House, hopefully coming your way in the next week or so, which provides funding for both the commercial urban farmers as well as the nonprofits that have community gardens and things of that sort in urban areas. So this has a statewide reach. We have a lot of agriculture going on in the urban areas of Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Frederick City, we understand, in addition to Baltimore City, where there, I believe, are more than 20 urban farms that are operating. So be happy to take any questions, but this is an important piece of legislation, and it's funded, as you know, from legislation you passed yesterday, the Maryland Great Outdoors Act, which was accelerating 3 pots of agricultural land preservation funding, and we're taking a piece of that to fund this particular program. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McHenry. Next, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, committee members. Just a quick correction on the name. It's pronounced Human Hadarian, and I am speaking on behalf of Fair Farm, which is a program of Waterkeepers Chesapeake, taking over for Shelby Collum, who was the previous campaign manager. So again, I'm here and asking for a favorable report on this bill. In a previous testimony, again, on Senator McCrae's bill, I was mentioning that I used to be an urban farmer in Prince George's County called Eco City Farms. And again, along with the issues I saw there, water and power was also a serious issue. Fortunately, that farm has been there for quite a while, and we do have those infrastructures in place, but I've heard from some scary stories about, about getting the new infrastructure needed at that farm, getting new infrastructure needed at other farm, it's a huge barrier to entry for any farmer, especially in the urban areas. Highly encourage you to go to visit Farmer Chippy's Plantation Park Heights in Baltimore City. Highly encourage you to visit farms in Prince George's County, like Eco City Farms, like New Brooklyn Farms with Doug Adams, who is a member of the Fair Farms. And so, again, highly believe that this bill is very important to lower those barriers to entry and to make sure that food apartheid areas in the city and other counties are eventually removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robin Clark here with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation in support of SB 942. This legislation, as you heard, recognizes the potential of the urban agriculture movement to address food priority needs and also to preserve green spaces. For those reasons, we support the legislation. Thanks.
Thank you. Committee, my understanding, there's no opposition, and the bill is actually funded. So we have a lot of bills. Let's keep them very succinct and let them get back to their voting session. I know Senator Ellis has a very brief question.
Could you define urban? Thank you, Senator, for this bill. Is urban defined in the bill?
Can somebody take that?
I would say that one of the great parts about the definition of urban agriculture producer in this bill is that it's broad enough to accommodate those who sell, plan to sell, or normally would have sold at least $1,000 annually of farm products produced from a farming operation in the state. And the definition is further that those farms are located in urban areas of the state as defined by the Maryland Department of Agriculture.
So how is that defined? That's my question. How is it defined? What's urban?
Evidently-
As for instance, is like Waldorf, would Waldorf be considered a part of an urban area?
It's my expectation that Waldorf would be a census-defined place that would be defined as being urban. And under MDA's regulations, they would very likely use a census designation of urban.
It's based on population density of the area.
Okay. Okay, I'll follow up with that. Thanks.
Seeing no further questions, thank you all. Senator, thank you for your bill, and you may leave us. Thank the witnesses. Let's go to Senator Watson, who's been with us. This is Intrastate Emergency Management Assistance Compact, City of Bowie. We have the good senator and Lee Cornwell from Bowie. Mr. Cornwell, are you with us?
He is not.
Okay.
He sent his Me Too in advance.
No problem. Please, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Senator Ron Watson for the record. Here to present Senate Bill 932. This bill seeks to include the City of Bowie as a participating jurisdiction in the Maryland Intrastate Emergency Management Assistance Compact. The purpose of the MEMA, as I'll call it, is to provide emergency management mutual assistance between jurisdictions that are part of the compact during critical incidents. It allows any jurisdiction in Maryland to request and receive assets from another Maryland jurisdiction through the coordination of the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. As part of this process, parties collaborate on requested procedures and financial and liability issues. It also provides for mutual cooperation in emergency management-related exercises, testing, and other training activities. The City of Bowie has a population of over 58,000. The fifth most populous city in Maryland, larger than 8 counties. The City of Bowie has its own full-time Director of Emergency Management. Only one of 3 municipalities in the state have that, Bowie, Laurel, and Rockville. And finally, Bowie's police force, 86 employees, 65 officers, 3 police stations, We believe that the city of Bowie is uniquely equipped to provide added value as a member of this compact, as well as to receive support should such an emergency occur. There is no fiscal note attached to this, and I request a favorable report.
Thank you. Questions, committee, seeing none, it's pretty straightforward. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hopefully, we can dispatch this fairly quickly. Okay, let's go, Senator Riley, you want to do 972? Then Senator Ellis, if the other people from upstairs aren't down, we'll go to you next. You're doing Senator Jackson's bills? Great.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ed Riley for the record. This Senate bill was at the request of the department. So over the past 50 or 60 years, we keep adding and subtracting different areas of the code. This is a cleanup. This is a reorganization and revision. When I read the fiscal note, this is what it is designed to do. It's designed to rename, require that fees be generated by a profession be used by the Maryland Board of Physicians, expands the authority of the Maryland Board of Physicians to issue regulations regarding committees, requires clarification of a disciplinary panel, defines what constitutes a quorum for Allied Health Advisory Committee. It repeals the requirements that the Maryland Board of Physicians provide specific data sheet with license renewal notices, and generally corrects a lot of cross-references. It's a 120-page bill, which does not change the scope of practice. It's just an administrative cleanup submitted on behalf of the administration. I'd like to turn it over for Matthew for his comments.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you to Senator Riley for the bill. For the record, Matt Dudzik with the Maryland Board of Physicians. It is my sincere hope that this is the least controversial 100-plus page bill you all have to deal with this session. Many of you may recall the Board of Physicians Sunset Report that passed out of this committee in 2020. This bill is actually born from one of the recommendations of that report. As the senator just referenced, the Board of Physicians regulates not just physicians, but 12 other allied health professions, so physician assistants, respiratory care therapists, athletic trainers, and so on. And while each new profession that gets added comes with its own unique requirements that are reflected in the statute, there are a lot of provisions that are exactly the same across the board. So for example, the requirements for criminal history record checks, those are exactly the same for a physician as they are for a radiographer and every other allied health profession. Unfortunately, this has led to a great deal of redundancy in the Maryland Medical Practice Act. Provisions like criminal history record checks, as I mentioned, terms of licensure, et cetera, get repeated in 12 different places in the statute. The end result is that the Maryland Medical Practice Act it gets bloated. It's over 250 pages. It's got a lot of confusing and repetitive language. And some of this was cleaned up during the 2020 sunset, but one of the recommendations from the sunset was to restructure the Medical Practice Act by creating a new general provisions section that would serve as the home for all of those provisions that apply just across the board. So that is what the bill does. It's a lengthy bill because redundant language had to be struck in so many places and moved to so many different areas. But the bill itself is very simple. And just to reiterate, one thing the bill does not do is change any requirements or standards for either the board or the professions that it regulates. It does not change scope of practice. It does not alter or remove any educational or training requirements. Does not in any way change the oversight of these professions. What it will do is clean up an act that is often very confusing. And I urge the committee to submit a favorable report. Thank you.
Questions for the sponsor of the witness? Vice Chair.
Mr. Dudzik, I have two questions. I think they are yes/no questions. We have testimony before us that alleges, and so I just want to ask you, will this bill put profits over patients?
No.
Will it recklessly reduce the standard of medical care in Maryland?
No.
Will it repeal important legal safeguards for patients?
No.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Lamb.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Dudzik. A question for you about the bill. It sounds like this is mostly cleanup language and consolidating parts of the statute. Was this ever considered as a departmental bill, or was this pursued in that avenue?
It was. The reason that we ended up going as and pursuing a private sponsorship rather than having it submitted as departmental was because of the process involved in getting a bill drafter. There are some difficulties with the timeline. Because it is such a substantial bill, we wanted to get a bill drafter involved with the process as early as possible. And the timeline with the submission of departmental bills didn't really allow for that.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can add just one more thing. The bill came out of bill drafting late, had to go to rules, and we had to have a special exception to bring it for us today. So it was a complicated bill. They were working on it behind the scenes for an extended period of time, and finally made it.
And did it go to rules late because you were trying to go through the departmental route and it didn't cross the finish line, and hence now appears with a private sponsor, which no problem with the private sponsor at all, but I'm just trying to understand this.
I am not entirely sure why it went through rules. On the House cross file, it did not. But again, I'm not really familiar with the process once it's submitted through DLS as far as the reasons why it went in that direction.
Senator, we were working on this bill we've been interacting since October. I knew it was coming, and as soon as it hit, I dropped it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none. Thank you all. That concludes the hearing on this legislation. Thank you. I see Senator Hedelman. Senator, please. This is Student Athletes Uniform Modifications for Modesty, Inclusive Athletic Attire Act. Joining the senator is Yannette Emanuel and Sarah Miki, if I don't screw that up, and Zainab Chowdhury. And they will be followed by Yasmin Okosheri, Janan Hayes, and Carlita Foster Hayes. You can be sitting in the first row if you'd like to come forward, and then we'll take questions. Senator Hedelman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Shelley Hedelman, a senator from District 11 in Baltimore County, and I'm here today to introduce to you Senate Bill 951. What this bill does is it seeks to codify the right of our student athletes to modify their athletic uniforms to comply with requirements or preferences that align with their religious or cultural practices. And we believe, and you'll hear some incidents that happened to some of these students, that students never should have to choose between their faith and participating in sports. And an athlete who wishes to honor their faith tradition by wearing a turban, a hijab, or wearing long sleeves under a jersey shouldn't be penalized, ostracized, or otherwise excluded from participating. Current law right now allows the National Federation of High School Associations uniform has an exception granted by the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. And what it says is that any participant currently may wear a head covering wrap or other required religious garment which is not abrasive, hard, or dangerous to any player or others and is attached in some way that is unlikely to come off during play. And what we want to do is we want to codify that. We know that that leadership changes in these organizations, and we want to make sure that we offer this protection in law. I don't really want to go into take much of the committee's time because you're going to hear directly from people who have experienced this kind of discrimination, and I want to give them an opportunity and just thank you for your support. We believe this is a good balance. It protects people's individual rights to have expressions of their faith, and at the same time ensures the safety and viability of our teams. School athletics is so important. I know both of my kids played I think, every season of their high school careers. And we just want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity and is not precluded in having to make a choice between the observance of their faith and being part of their school community. So without further ado, I will turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Emanuel.
Good afternoon, Chair Pinsky, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Yvette Emanuel, Intern Public Policy Director with the ACLU of Maryland. The ACLU of Maryland supports SB 951, which would allow student athletes to modify an athletic or team uniform to make their attire more modest or to conform to requirements or preferences to the student athlete's religion or culture, vigorously defends the right of all Americans, including public school students, to practice their religion and express their faith. As enshrined in the First Amendment, the religious freedom includes two complementary protections: the right to religious belief and expression, and a guarantee that government neither prefers religion over non-religion nor favors particular faiths over others. These dual protections work hand in hand, allowing religious liberty to thrive and safeguarding both religion and government from undue influences of the other. This bill, as Senator Heddleman explained, just simply codifies into law the right for secondary school community colleges and university athletes in public institutions to wear clothing or head coverings that are worn for religious reasons, including but not limited to a hijab, a saki patka, and a long sleeve bodysuit, leggings, or undergarments for modesty without requiring prior approval. And so, for the foregoing reasons, the ACLU of Maryland urges a favorable report. Thank you.
You, the rest of you may proceed in whatever order you choose. Let's not be bashful.
Good afternoon, Chair Pinsky and members of the committee. I'm Sarah Mirsky-Mickey. I'm the Deputy Director of the Baltimore Jewish Council, which represents the Associated Jewish Community Federation in Baltimore and all of its agencies. We support SB 951. Students in 2022 should not be arbitrarily denied the ability to play a sport because of their religious or modesty attire. You will listen to the students today, and I would also encourage you to listen to the students from the House hearing a few weeks ago, where we heard several students who were told by referees that they could not play in a particular game because of their head covering or their modesty undershirt. This decision is currently basically at the behest of the referee. These students played dozens of games where they never had an issue, and then at one game, a referee said that they couldn't play because of their head covering or their modesty apparel. This, makes these children shamed and uncomfortable. And of course, for them, it is not, they could have taken it off, but for them, they cannot take it off. So, for these reasons, we support SB 951.
Ms. Chowdhury.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Chair Pinsky, members of the EHE Committee. On behalf of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, I thank you for this opportunity to testify in strong support of Senate Bill 951, introduced by Senator Shelley Heddleman. CARE is America's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. And in my time working as a social justice activist, I've personally spoken with many families and individuals, students across the state who either have faced obstacles in competing in school sports because they wear the religious headscarf and choose to dress modestly, or they've chosen not to pursue their passion for sports out of fear that they might be singled out and humiliated because of their religious beliefs. Some of this fear, unfortunately, is rooted in the experiences of other Maryland student athletes, including Janan Hayes, who is a witness here today that you'll hear from, whose testimony you'll hear from in support of this legislation. Playing competitive sports is challenging enough without having to worry about uniform policies that risk compromising religious practices or values. But when regulations make it difficult to practice these beliefs, it creates a frustrating stalemate that no amount of skill or practice alone can resolve. And this is a dilemma that athletes around the world have faced, including American athletes Bilqis Abdulkader and Sikh athlete Darshpreet Singh. Abdulkader, in the testimony, there is more context about those particular athletes' stories. I'm not going to go too much into the details, but essentially neither of those players had the option to continue their basketball careers beyond college because up until 2017, FIBA, the International Basketball Federation, did not allow any kind of headgear, including religious garments, and it automatically disqualified those students. Fortunately, over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of progress that we've seen on the national and international stage in terms of making sure that sports are more inclusive for athletes of diverse religious backgrounds. In 2017, my organization welcomed FIBA's official ruling that lifted its ban on religious headgear to allow players who wear articles of faith to participate in international competitions. Also in 2017, after Janan's case, we applauded the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association's policy change, which now is a memo that's instated currently in Maryland. I'm going to wrap it up. But we want to codify that into law. So we sincerely thank Senator Hedelman for taking the lead on this bill in the Senate. We strongly encourage you to please vote in favor of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you women could step back to the first row so we can bring up, and Senator, if you can wait, Senator, please wait. We might have some questions. And Ms. Foster Hayes, Ms. Janan Hayes, and Yasmin El-Koshiari. Then we'll take questions for all of the witnesses, including the sponsor. And you may proceed in whatever order you choose.
Do I just click it? It's on, okay. Good afternoon, Chair Pinsky and Education, Health, and Environment Committee members. I feel a great sense of honor to be able to be an outlet for change and testify in support of Bill SB 951. Thank you to the respected persons who have introduced this legislation in response to my personal experience and the countless untold stories of people who have faced unfairness in the light of sports. Looking back at the trials I encountered.
Ma'am, could you give us your name for the record? We're being live streamed.
Janan Hayes, pardon me. Looking back at the trials I encountered while being on the varsity basketball team at Watkins Mill High School, the first of many challenges began because I wore long-sleeve shirts under my jersey. The referees withheld me from playing due to my undershirt not modifying the official basketball uniform. As a woman who was Muslim and observes the hijab, conforming my modesty to fit into archaic rulings is something that is not up for negotiation. On many occasions, I observed that some referees granted other players, especially boys who played on basketball, to wear opposite color undershirts and allowed clearance to participate in the sport. I would watch on the sidelines and often feel discriminated against. Why did other basketball players get a pass for doing the same thing I do every day to uphold my values and my religious beliefs? In my 11 years of wearing hijab, I have been a receiver of many offensive jokes, but never considered the potential to experience a ruling from a sport that would make me authenticate my sincerity to my faith. I had previously played in 24 basketball tournaments at my school during the season, and on March 3rd, 2017, I was denied the right to play the sport I had worked countless hours on. My team had lost a regional final against Oxon Hill High School, and after losing, my coach, Donita Adams, pulled me aside and explained my denial for playing was because of the absence of an official documentation explaining my reasoning for hijab. Here's a reason. I am Muslim. Wearing a hijab is a part of my uniform that God and God alone can rule on. I should not be a target for simply practicing what I believe is per my faith. A need for documentation about wearing a hijab in a sport was never brought to my attention when I tried out for the team, and it certainly wasn't discussed with me before the referee, before the game. Nonetheless, I am somewhat grateful to the Oxon Hill referee who chose to enforce the archaic ruling that day. Because of rejection, I have faced many opportunities to tell my story, impact change, and increase community support. By sharing my story, I'm here today speaking the truth and refusing to lay down in the face of injustice. I'm here today because I refuse to hear another story of a Muslim and other religious people to be observing head coverings denied the right to play the sport they love. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Pinsky, and Education, Health, and Environmental Committee members. My name is Carlita Foster Hayes. I want to thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of SB 951 entitled the Inclusive Athletic Attire Act. So the decision to play basketball came late in my daughter's years in high school, but she was very determined to try out for the team. She succeeded and was put on the varsity team on her first try. I was so proud of the journey that she was on, taking a leap to be part of something that I never felt comfortable doing, playing basketball. She worked hard each game to do her best and always stayed true to her faith as a young Muslim hijabi woman. Now, as a parent, it was heartbreaking to sit on the sidelines on March 3rd, 2017, waiting in anticipation as my daughter was ready to play her first regional finals basketball game, along with her Watkins Mill High School's teammates. So the anticipation was short-lived, rather snatched away due to a technicality that neither of us was aware of. A piece of paper, a written waiver stood in the way of her having the privilege of playing in that game. A referee for that fateful game cited the National Federation of State High Schools Association's rule book, which states that head decorations and headwear are prohibited, made the decision to ask for such a waiver. This waiver documentation should be with the athletic director or coach at all games in case the need arises. Now, this waiver would have excused her to play with her sacred hijab, which is like second nature as putting on a shirt or pants when she goes out. The hijab is very distinguishable for a Muslim woman, easily to identify. Now, as my daughter sat on the bench, not one, but all 4 quarters, I became worried about her not playing. That worry turned into annoyance, which turned into frustration, and then pivoted to anger. Why? As it turned out, not once during the entire basketball season in Montgomery County was she informed that she should have requested such a waiver because she was different in one unique way, her hijab. The one thing that made her unique, stand out, and one of a kind was an issue. Neither the athletic director nor her coach informed her that such a paper, this waiver, held so much power to exclude her from playing in the regionals game.
Ma'am, we're going to have to wrap it up.
Yes. So I just wanted to thank you all for your time, and I believe that the SB 951 bill is a much needed, and I fully support and the commitment to protect the religious freedom of our vastly different makeups. Thank you, and I strongly urge you to suggest it in favor. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Yasmin Okashiari.
Hello, Chair Pinsky and the committee members. My name is Yasmin El-Kasheri, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of this bill. Ever since I was a young girl, playing sports has been one of my biggest passions because there's something about the excitement of winning games and celebrating with teammates that you can't really get from anywhere else. And I'm sure if you have children, you understand that kind of emotion that you can get from sports. It is one of the most profound experiences for me, and it can teach many irreplaceable lessons as a person is growing. And I just wanted to say the fact that these experiences can be denied to a child because of their religious reasons is beyond unfair, and it is honestly almost disgusting. I'm a hijabi myself, as you can see, and I have played soccer for years. I've played club soccer, varsity soccer, academy soccer, and I'm now in the process of playing for a semi-professional team. And in all my years of playing, I have never had a problem with the refs saying that I could not play due to the simple reasoning that if you're not wearing a color that is clashing with your team's color or you're wearing something that can harm somebody else, there should be no problem just because if you're matching with your team, that's all you need to do. Covering up and wearing a headscarf is a difficult decision, and personally for me it was also a very difficult decision because it changes everything about your way of life and the nature of the way you go about things. So the fact that this decision could become sort of a punishment for doing the things you love is demeaning, and it shows no empathy for the struggles hijabis already have to go through. I believe that if there's no conflict with the colors in the uniform, there should be no restrictions on what an athlete has to wear. And we are too advanced of a society to disallow children or people in general to play because of their clothing and religious choices. And I respectfully urge your vote in favor of it. Thank you for your consideration.
Questions for the sponsor or either of the two panels? Vice Chair, Senator Ellis, Senator Carrozza, in that order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry that I missed some of your stories, but I am sure that they would make my head curl, so or hair curl, or head explode, or some cliche like that. I have a question for the sponsor of the bill, which is this speaks specifically to public schools, and I just did quick research, and it appears that homeschoolers are able to play. It says allows competition with private schools that include homeschool athletes, and I wonder if it were the committee's will whether we would apply equitably to public and non-public schools.
The bill is now in the hands of the committee.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here and sharing your stories, and I am going to try to go online and watch them all because I really want to honor your presence, and I am an ally, so thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Mr.
your
Chair.
support.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator Hellman, thank you for this bill, and ladies, for your stories. And, you know, I have a question. I know it's all ladies testifying. So if a guy, say, have a turban, will he be covered by this bill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Helderman, thank you for the bill. I want to thank you all for testifying, and I think your comments about the camaraderie with sports, especially, you know, with the women's sports, is absolutely on track. I had that experience as well. My question, I think, is for Senator Hedelman. You know, it's disappointing that it had to come to legislation. Were there any efforts to try to work out this issue before seeking a legislative solution?
So I have to say, and Zainab might be able to answer because CARE has been involved in those discussions, but the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association, after the incident in 2017, was responsive. It is in a memo, so that's as far as it goes. We just want to make sure that whoever it was who instituted that policy change, and we applaud that policy change, that when that person goes, or when that, you know, set of administrators is no longer there, that that policy is codified. So that's why it's important. I applaud them. They did
So
a
the
good thing.
policy's in place, and you're not experiencing this now, but you want to basically
Make sure it
codify the policy.
continues.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you for bringing this to our attention. It's extremely unfortunate, if I can speak for myself, that people are discriminated against. I think a lot of us here think sports is part and parcel of growing and working with others and collaborating, and it's unfortunate that's limited. Anyway, thank you all for your testimony. Senator, thank you for the bill.
Thank you very much.
That concludes the hearing on 951. Senator Young, this is Senate Bill 971, Concentration of Poverty School Grant Program School Lunch. We also have Julia Gross, Callie Schumitz, and if there's space, we'll eventually have Chelsea Lewis and Marla Letourneau. If there's not enough space, you can just sit in the first row and we'll rotate you up here. Senator, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman.
Congratulations from EHE for this morning.
Thank you.
Also a former member of EHE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. And inasmuch as this will be my last time ever appearing before this committee, at least as a senator, I just want to say that I don't think there is a committee that has more interesting topics, or particularly ones that at least were of interest to me, and more opportunities to learn yourself and learn about your community that you can do on this committee than any other committee in the Senate. So it will always remain my favorite in that sense. So Senate Bill 971 requires community schools receiving funding from the Concentration of Poverty School Grant Program to provide free breakfast and lunch to all students at the school. School meals play a critical role in combating childhood food insecurity and promoting childhood physical and academic development. Unfortunately, barriers like cost and the stigma of accepting standardized or free meals too often keep students from accessing them. Senate Bill 971 would reduce that stigma and ensure access to healthy school meals in two ways. First, it extends the Universal School Meals Program funded by ARPA by 1 year to provide every student in Maryland a free breakfast and lunch through school years 2022-23. Second, it requires schools that qualify under the Blueprint's Concentration of Poverty Guide laws to provide every student with free breakfast and lunch in perpetuity. A comment on the cost. After publication of the fiscal note, it came to light that an assumption was made that was not the intent of the bill, making the note that you have before you much higher than the actual cost will be. And a clarifying amendment is being drafted to fix the issue. which will ensure that the schools are still bringing in as many federal reimbursements as possible before any state money is used, and will lower the overall cost of the bill. The cost of the one-year extension is understandably significant, but this is a one-time cost that we think is manageable given our current surplus. It's also a necessary cost to continue the program and well worth the investment to support Maryland students, families, and school systems as they recover from the impacts of the pandemic. I also offer 2 amendments today. First, to add the word breakfast and wherever it states lunch, breakfast and wherever it states lunch in the original bill, and second, to add Senators Lamb, Washington, and Watson as co-sponsors to the bill. So I ask you that you vote favorably on Senate Bill 971 to demonstrate that we're working to reduce inequities of poverty and to enhance the development of children's minds and bodies through dependable, healthy meals. So with that, I will turn it over to the panel or take questions later or whenever you wish.
Senator, if you don't mind, I'd like to get through the panel, then we'll open up the questions, and I'm sure there'll be some.
Very good.
Thank you. Ms. Gross?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Kagan, and members of the committee. My name is Julia Gross. I'm here on behalf of Maryland Hunger Solutions to express support of SB 971. Maryland Hunger Solutions is a statewide, nonpartisan nonprofit working to end hunger in the state of Maryland. And we work with many programs, including the school meal programs, which have always been one of our nation's first-line defenses against childhood hunger, ensuring kids have the nutrition they need to grow and thrive throughout their childhood. But because of the barriers our current tiered payment system creates, too many kids get left out and therefore miss out on educational opportunities because they are distracted by hunger in the classroom. We know that hungry kids can't learn, but because of cost and stigma and other barriers, they often prevent kids who need the meals the most from accessing them. Additionally, the low eligibility threshold means that a family of 4 living off of just $50,000 a year doesn't qualify for assistance through the free and reduced price meal program, even though they may still be struggling financially. SB 971 helps address this in the 2 ways that Senator Young outlined. And for the past 2 years, federal waivers have allowed us to experience the benefits of a system where all students have access to free, healthy school meals without having to justify or prove that they need them. However, we know these waivers were not included in the recent omnibus appropriations package, which means that they are set to end June 30th. But the families who are struggling before and during the pandemic are still struggling now, including many of those who won't qualify for assistance under the program that we're going to return to, but who will benefit in life-changing ways from the support that this bill provides to them and their children. We also know that the school nutrition staff have done incredible work throughout the pandemic to continue serving meals and meeting the needs of their kids throughout school closures and all of the challenges that they've been facing. But those challenges are still in existence. They still are experiencing threats of outbreaks, staffing shortages, supply chain disruptions, and inflation. And the funding from this bill will help provide them with assistance and support their operations through the next year of the recovery process. The last thing I'll say is that we are all looking forward to a day when kids across the state and across the country are all provided with a free school breakfast and lunch every day. But we're incredibly grateful for the provisions that this bill is putting forward and the steps that it's taking to ensure that less kids go hungry, more families are supported, and more kids will succeed academically. And so we see this as not only good policy, but a smart investment and the right thing to do. So this is why Maryland Hunger Solutions urges a favorable report. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Gross, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Always a treat to hear from Maryland Hunger Solutions. Next, Kaylee Shumitz, Maryland Center on Economic Policy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Callie Shumitz. I'm with the Maryland Center on Economic Policy. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization using research-backed policy to help all Marylanders thrive. We're here in strong support of Senate Bill 971 for the reasons that Senator Young and Ms. Gross just outlined. School meals are really critical to health and learning. Expanding access to school meals is an investment that builds on the commitment that the state has made through the Blueprint for Maryland's Future and the vision that every child can get a great education. Investing in kids will have long-term benefits for our state. There's extensive research that links school meals to improved academic achievement, improved attendance, and improved health both in the short and long term. This not only benefits those individual students and their families who are receiving the school meals, but it's better for our economy as a whole when every child can get enough to eat and is set up for success in school. We know that the pandemic brought unprecedented levels of food insecurity across our state, and even now, census data shows that 9% of adults in households with children are reporting that they don't always have enough food in their house. Senate Bill 971 will build on a successful federal effort, and we've seen that this works, and so we can keep it going in Maryland and help meet the needs of Maryland children. So we would ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Ms. Shumitz, and now wrapping it up, Marla Letourneau.
Hey, my name is Chelsea Lewis. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm a member of the Client Leadership Council of the Capital Area Food Bank. My children and I have been living in Montgomery County for about 15 months now. I'm a single parent of 3. My twins attend Richard Montgomery High School, and my youngest is in his first year of middle school at Julius West. I am here to express how important healthy meals in schools are to not only me and my family, but to all families. I have battled with food insecurities for a very long time, and that was primarily due to me not earning a comfortable salary at the jobs that I've had. I realized my barrier was not having a college degree, because we all know having a college degree equates to higher salaries in the job market. That is why I am in college full-time at Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland, at this very moment, so that I can overcome the financial barriers that I have been faced with for years. I have had to depend on school breakfasts and lunches to feed my children, and it is important for all children to receive healthy, tasty meals while attending school. I believe school meal programs are critical because they provide children with the nutrition they need to be able to thrive in school and out of school. A child that does not eat breakfast or lunch is unable to focus while in school. I mean, honestly, who can really focus on anything when they're hungry? Offering school meals to all students at no cost is a huge step toward ending childhood hunger. The passing of SB 971 matters wholeheartedly to me, and it will give me the security of knowing my children are going to have healthy breakfasts and lunches 5 days a week. I strongly encourage everyone to support SB 971, and I'm confident that if this bill is passed, in the years to come, you will see the difference this bill can and will make on our children. Again, my name is Chelsea Lewis, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story. Thank you.
Ms. Lewis, you live right near me.
I do.
Yeah, in the heart of District 17,
All
just
right.
saying. Well, good luck with your studies at Bowie State.
Thank you so much.
Very exciting, proud of you.
Thank you, thank you.
We have one more witness, and then we'll take questions. Is Ms. Letourneau here? Here we go. Let's, if one of you could just scoot back to the first row or something, make room. There we go. Maryland School Nutrition Association.
First, let me make a correction. I am Mary Klatko in for Marla Letourneau, and she says it was noted.
Hard to sign up, huh? Okay.
I guess so.
I got that. Okay, Ms. Klatko, welcome to EHE.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Maryland has been a national leader in combating childhood hunger for decades, from launching the free statewide breakfast program, Maryland Meals for Achievement, to eliminating reduced-price meals in the Maryland Cares for Kids Act, demonstrating a commitment to student health. Maryland School Nutrition Association is proud to collaborate with local and statewide partners to ensure students have access to nutritious school meals. As such, we eagerly support the state's adoption of a fully funded free meals program for all students. As written, Senate Bill 971 does not serve all Maryland students. For fiscal year 2022, nearly 700,000 students in 1,000 schools would not have the access to state-supported free meals. Senate Bill 971 requires an LEA to apply for and participate in the Federal Community Eligibility Program. The CEP eligibility schools that are currently not participating have done extensive research on financial feasibility and the impact on educational aid. Achieving universal school meals through CEP is not possible under this bill and would be detrimental not only to food service operations, but to the school's Title I and compensatory education operations as well. The Maryland School Nutrition Association wants to feed all students, but we do not want to do so at the loss of other vital services such as educational resources. Therefore, out of concern that schools will lose funding in Title I or compensatory education aid, Maryland School Nutrition Association requests an exemption from the CEP requirement. In conclusion, the Maryland School Nutrition Association supports a fully funded universal meal program for all students. Schools provide transportation and Chromebooks to students at no cost. Students should have healthy meals provided as well. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Klatko. Thank you all for your testimony. I know that I've got a question, and so do some of my colleagues. So Senator Riley, followed by Senator Washington.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Ms. Bogle, is it? With the black sweater? Could you come up? You seem to be most knowledgeable about the intricacies. Is this cover any certain grades? Does it go all the way through high school?
So it's Ms. Gross.
Thank you.
So through next year, it would cover all schools, all public schools in Maryland. After that, it would cover community schools that are funded under the Blueprints Concentration of Poverty grant model,
Okay, so it's everybody from K through 12.
as
Okay.
long as they fit that requirement.
Very good. I'm very supportive of the bill, so don't read into the questions. I'm just not knowledgeable about it. So share with me, the school meals are available every school day. What about holidays?
So there are other programs that cover out-of-school time. So the summer food service program covers summer months as well as certain breaks after the after-school program, meal program through the CACFP, Child and Adult Care.
I don't understand
Food-
acronyms. CAFC?
The Child and Adult Care Food Program. There are other programs that cover out-of-school time hours, but the school lunch program and the school breakfast program are what's served during the school day.
All right, thank you for your answers.
Washington?
Thank you, and thank you for this bill, Senator Young. I did want to ask you about the, how it works, about the community eligibility program, and if you were aware that, yeah, if that's a requirement in the bill. So, no, I'm asking Senator Young. So Senator Young, it's a requirement in your bill.
I believe so, yes.
Right. And so were you aware that the impact on Title I dollars, that by requiring community eligibility could reduce the distribution of Title I dollars within your school district, with particular schools? It doesn't affect the whole district, but it could hurt particular schools.
I'm not sure of the exact relationship of the programs, but I think between them, we're trying to cover that all the meals are taken. So if it reduces one but is taken care of someplace else, the goal is to provide the meals for everybody.
Well, under your bill, just one last question. Under your bill, if there's $100 going to the school system under CEP, using CEP, community eligibility, that there would be schools within your school system who might not get any money, who under the current, if I'm understanding correctly, under the current model would get some distribution. So I was wondering, do you have an alternative way to provide this to all students other than CEP? Because clearly it's not something that, it causes disparities within school systems.
Okay. Frankly, I'm unaware that this would take away from another school.
Okay.
If it does, we have to take a look at that and make sure it doesn't happen.
Great, thank you.
Did you
It's all right, I have an answer. I'm good.
Thing you'd like to answer, but I think she got the answer. Okay. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's great bill, Senator Young. Have you spoken to like the school boards, the local boards, as far as how, this might affect, following up with Senator Washington's question, did they kind of weigh in on this? Where people who prepare the lunches and who, feed these kids?
I haven't spoken to them directly. I know they're aware of the bill, and we had no comments from them, one way or the other.
So how could we interpret that silence from your years of experience?
Well, usually if somebody has an objection, they're here. And we have not heard any objection as far as the bill's concerned. It basically is extending what already exists and then broadening it after that.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Senator. I have a question for you, ma'am. What's your name?
Mary Klacko?
Ms. Klacko. So I wasn't sure about your testimony, Ms. Klacko. Are you in favor of this bill or are you against this bill?
We are in favor of this bill, but we want to take CEP out. Oh, I'm sorry. We are in favor of this bill as long as you take CEP out.
Now, CEP is?
Community Eligibility Program. That's a
So-
federal program.
So what would that do if you take it out?
It operates by itself. Okay. Okay. CEP is a federal program. It's run separately, and many schools in Maryland have opportunities to participate in it, but in looking at the feasibility of it, they've declined. Right now, the rate going in is 40%. If 40% of the students are on free and reduced price meal program, they can apply for CEP. But the reimbursement through the federal government, because now when you do CEP, you feed all students. 40% are at one rate, and the paying students are not at that rate for reimbursement. So the school district determines it's losing money.
So you're saying the school system, with this bill currently written, keeping the CEP in, they will lose money.
This bill says 80%. You will not lose money at 80%. The schools that already are at 80% are in this program because they can deal with it financially. But you can get in at 40% if you can find some other way to subsidize.
Okay, I'm going to need like a flow chart, but 40%, 80%.
We'll go over
so
some of
we
this, I
can go over this,
suspect, during our
okay,
voting session,
to see,
conversation and debate. and stuff.
Because we don't
So
want
thank you.
anyone to lose anything, especially with federal funds that is available.
Right,
So we
that
need
is
to be
certainly-
careful with the percentages and
Yes.
who wins and who loses.
That is certainly not the intent of this bill, so we want to make sure that when we discuss it, and I know that Ms. Goodman will help guide us and educate us all. So my question briefly, and I don't know if I should toss it to you, Ms. Gross, or to someone else on the panel, is about the food supply, the food supply challenge, I'm not even saying it right, that has plagued us all and has also resulted in not just delays, but in increased costs. How is that affecting our food, our school lunch and breakfast programs? Is that something that any of you all briefly can speak to?
Yes, we are the school food service people who are feeding the children. And yes, we are having difficulty all over the place. We put out a bid. The bid says we're going to get these things. They assure us they do, and of course, they don't come in. Then we have to make substitutions. When we make the substitutions, they have to meet the federal guidelines. And right now, we're under 2 years of waivers that if we don't meet that guideline and we substitute something else for something else, we can do that. This all goes away June 30th, as she said.
Okay.
And the labor shortage is just as bad. Marla was supposed to be here today. She is sitting in
Marla
the
Copeland.
back. She came late because she was managing a school.
Yeah.
She's a supervisor.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we're glad you're here. We are grateful to all of you, and thank you, Senator Young, and congratulations again. We're all really proud of you.
Thank you.
That completes the hearing on Senate Bill 971.
Thank you. We have two Charles County bills, and the good Senator Ellis from Charles County is going to present them. Senator, it's 916 and 965. The only witness is Ms. Mitchell. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Senator, you can proceed in whichever one you want to do first.
Okay. Let's begin with, let's see, alcohol. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chairman Pinsky and colleagues. Senator Arthur Ellis here presenting Senate Bill 965 in lieu of Charles County other Senator Michael Jackson. Senate Bill 965 is a straightforward bill. It will authorize a small mom-and-pop local Charles County, say, restaurant. They're doing well. They have a restaurant in, say, La Plata, and they want to expand to Waldorf, open another restaurant in Waldorf. Current law does not allow them to have 2 liquor licenses, Class B, for both of those facilities. I must say that chain restaurants, your Applebee's or the like, are allowed to have more than one because of a higher capital requirement. So this bill simply authorizes the county to issue additional license to a small, say, local store that wants, or restaurant that wants to expand within the county. And I have a county, is it Deputy Attorney?
Associate County Attorney.
Associate County Attorney Mitchell here to go into any further details. She is assigned to the Liquor Board, and she will answer any questions that come up. So on behalf of Senator Michael Jackson, I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 965.
Please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. Senator Ellis has summed it up very nicely. It is a straightforward bill. It would allow for no more than 2 on-sale licenses to be held. Currently, we do have the BLX license, but it does require that additional cost as well as additional capacity in the restaurant. So we'd like to have the ability to offer our licensees the ability to have no more than 2 of those on-sale licenses. This would add Charles County to a list of a number of other counties in the state, to include Anne Arundel, Baltimore County and Baltimore City, Hartford, Howard, and Montgomery. So again, that's about it. It's very simple. Thank you. Oh, one other thing I might add, we did receive comments from the Maryland State Licensed Beverage Association asking for some wording changes that would make the bill more consistent with other multiple licensing provisions in other jurisdictions. Our Board of Commissioners supports those changes. It's really non-substantive, simply just making some slight grammatical changes.
Thank you. Questions, committee? I have one or two. Is it 2 across jurisdictions or 2 within a jurisdiction?
2 within Charles County, within the jurisdiction. Right now, you can have 1 in another jurisdiction and 1 in Charles County. So, for example, you could have Brandywine and Pinefield less than 2 miles apart. You could have 2 on-sale licenses right now because it's 2 different counties. We're seeking a change to allow for 2 within Charles County, which is not the law in Charles County right now.
And that's with retaining the one in the other county?
So could you have?
It's not replacing it,
yes.
it's in addition to.
Yes, you could have 1 in Prince George's and 2 in Charles County. You could do that, that's true.
And let me ask this. I see, and these all confuse me, a BH, a BR, and a BRB.
Right.
Can you have multiple in each category, or just one category?
No, you are only permitted to have 1 in the you're only permitted to have 1 of those Class B licenses. You could not have a BRB and a a hotel license. You can't do that. It's just the one on-sale license.
You'll have an additional one in the category in which you already have one.
Correct. Or you could, under that, you could do 1 restaurant bar. There's slightly different definitions. So there's, for a restaurant, it's primarily a restaurant, but you have to have a bar area. You could technically do one restaurant and one bar restaurant under the under the bill. As
And one other question, and it may not be under your purview, it may be committee counsel who drafted it. If it's just adding Charles County to the other 4 counties, why didn't it just have Montgomery, Garrett, and Charles? It looks like this is all new language.
It is, the code is set up in such a way that we each have a subtitle. So Charles County has its own subtitle, and we have to put, title, and we have to put this language in our title.
But the language is
It is similar to the language of those other counties that I mentioned.
Thank you. Senator Simon.
Thank you. And so this is primarily dealing with restaurants, and I was listening, I might have missed it. You have some clarifying amendments, is that correct?
That's correct. They've been submitted as a part of the testimony. It was really it was a request from the Maryland State Licensed Beverage Association to make the language so that instead of saying you're permitted to have no more than 2, it would say you can have no more than 2. So it kind of, it gets at the same thing. It's just worded a little differently.
Okay.
It's not
And
substantive.
I appreciate that, because I think that takes any opposition away from it.
Yeah, and Senator Simon, I'll follow up with Bill drafter to make sure it comes to the appropriate format. So.
Okay, thank you.
Second one, Senator.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is she still on this one?
Yes, Ms. Mitchell
Okay.
is on this one also.
This is a work group to study physical and operational viability of public-private partnerships for Charles County Public Schools.
Yes, Chairman Pinsky, Vice Chair Kagan, colleagues, for the record, Senator Arthur Ellis, representing District 28, Charles County, to present Senate Bill 916, as you said, work group to study the fiscal and operational viability of public-private partnerships for Charles County Public Schools. Could I just say that the major instruction point here will be Prince George's County, because you all have this program in the county. So we want to make sure that it can work in Charles County, and we'll have several members from the Senate, from the House, delegates from county commissioners on this work group. Charles County Board of Education, 2 members, and they appointed by the chair, and also the Interagency Commission on Schools Construction and Executive Director of the Maryland Stadium Authority. So we want to see if this can work in Charles County. As you might have known, Charles County is a fast-growing county, one of the top 5 fastest-growing counties in the nation. I must say, we take very care and pride in having the schools to satisfy the growth so we can properly educate our children. Charles County schools, the older buildings, they're well-maintained and well-staffed, but we want to make sure that we can utilize some of these sources to take care of our growth and make sure our children are properly educated. So all that being said, I ask for the committee for a favorable vote on Senate Bill 916.
Thank you, and Ms. Mitchell again.
Thank you. I would just add that on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, they believe that an innovative approach is needed to address the aging and overcrowded facilities, that there's no doubt that our public schools are a critical community asset, and alternative construction financing for design and build must be explored to ensure that we are being proper stewards of local and state tax dollars. We believe that bringing together all the relevant stakeholders to study how public-private partnerships may relieve the significant burden of funding new school construction and renovations will aid in bringing forth the most efficient options. And so we're seeking a favorable report on developing this work group. Thank you.
Questions for Senator Ellis or Ms. Mitchell? Seeing none, pretty straightforward. Thank you both.
Thank you.
For staying,
Thank
your
you,
patience. Okay, we're going to go to the last bill of the day, which is 912, and it is a bill I've sponsored or cross-filed with Delegate Lehrman. This bill is dealing with a situation which I've come across a number of times and have been approached on. This is where a student receives a scholarship, a need-based scholarship. And that's, of course, based on family income. And then we'll say after their sophomore year, their family income goes up $50. The mother or father, whatever, changed jobs. And it might have gone up modestly, but it kicks them out. And it doesn't matter that they're midway through or that it went over by $10 or $20, but they, for all intents and purposes, are removed from that scholarship. It's the cliff effect, essentially. So I put in the bill, and I'll talk about what the House has done to it. But essentially, wait. Oh, no. Is this the right bill?
No, this is not the fiscal cliff bill. This is.
Hold.
Yeah, it is the fiscal
Yeah,
cliff bill.
that's what it reads.
This is,
$7,000?
no.
This is the fiscal cliff bill. The GA grant and the, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so essentially, if you look on page 6 of the bill, and this gets to the heart of it, if a recipient of a guaranteed access grant becomes ineligible because of a change in family income, the recipient shall remain eligible for the award for the full term applicable, but they can reduce the award based on a sliding scale developed by the commission. So in other words, if the income of your parent or parents goes up, you don't lose the whole scholarship, it just is reduced concomitantly, I think. So that's what the bill does. Now, there's a House version, and in fact, it initiated in the House, and I know the Chair of Appropriations and Delegate Lehrman worked on it. They've come up with another approach. They say that if you're punched out by the guaranteed access, but you still are eligible for the Pell, that would retain your ability to get the whole scholarship. So I'm open to having a conversation, and when we take it up in a work session, we'll do that. But it's just not to let these kids suffer who have gone through 2 or 3 years and then to be dropped because of a small change in income. Yeah, the people who are eligible are in financial need. I mean, these are people, and as you know, in some of these, the waiting list is very long, and they run out of the money. So it's really the kids who really need it. We want to make sure they finish. I mean, they've already put in 1, 2, or 3 years, and then to get pushed out all of a sudden, I think is not a way to go. And there's a group works in Prince George's County, one in Baltimore City. Mr. Fisher has come frequently before us, and there's a program. I can't remember the name, not First Generation. There's a group in Baltimore that also does College Bound, who are working on this kind of thing. So that's the purpose of the bill, and I don't have any witnesses, and I don't think there's any opposition. There's a favorable from MICUA, and MHEC has information. So that's basically the bill. And I'm happy to answer questions if I can, or I'll let committee counsel answer them. Okay. We'll take it up, the details, and we can figure out whether our approach is better, their approach, or whether it's calls for negotiations. Okay, that completes the hearings for the day. We want a 10-minute break? Okay, let's do that. It is now 3:25 or 26, 3:26. 10 or 12 minutes. Okay, let's really start at 3:45, and let's try to knock out as many of these bills as we can. 3:45 sharp.